They made $2 trillion while your kids came home in boxes. 5 companies, 20 years, 2.3 trillion of your tax dollars, and they knew we'd lose from day one. I'm going to show you the receipts, the names, the exact amounts they made while American soldiers bled out in the desert. And by the end, you will understand why wars in America never end. Because for certain people, they're too damn profitable to stop. $2.3 trillion. That's more than Russia's entire economy. That's more than we spent on education for the last 40 years. That's $7,000 from every single American, including newborns. Every dollar went from your pockets straight into 5 defense contractors. This is how they turned war into a business model, how conflict became a product, and how you're paying for it with your money and your children's lives. In August 2021, when Kabul fell and American troops evacuated from rooftops in chaos, researchers at Brown University published their final report. They'd spent 20 years tracking every contract, every payment, every dollar spent in Afghanistan. What they found shocked even them. Total cost of the war, $2.313 trillion. But when they traced where that money actually went, they found something disturbing. 50% of all war spending, $1.14 trillion, didn't go to soldiers, didn't go to army equipment, didn't go to salaries. It went to private military contractors. 5 companies got 87% of all contracts. At first, this looked like typical government waste, standard Pentagon corruption. But when researchers dug deeper into the data, they discovered a system. These 5 companies spent $285 million on lobbying between 2001 and 2021. They hired 380 former Pentagon and congressional officials, and their stock prices grew by 1,200 to 2,300% while American soldiers were dying. In September 2021, the New York Times published documents showing that top executives at these companies knew the war was unwinnable back in 2009, but they lobbied to continue it because losing was more profitable than winning. And then everything made sense. The Afghanistan war didn't fail. For certain people, it worked exactly as planned. Here's how this system works in plain English. Step 1. Create the threat. America enters a conflict. Doesn't matter if we win or lose. What matters is the conflict creates demand for weapons, logistics, security, and reconstruction. Step 2. No competition contracts. The Pentagon issues contracts for national security. 50% of Afghanistan contracts were no bid, meaning no competition. 5 companies got them all. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman. Step 3. Cost plus contracts. This is where the magic happens. 60% of military contracts are cost plus. That means the company gets reimbursed for all expenses plus guaranteed profit on top. The more expensive the project, the bigger the profit. Zero incentive to cut costs or finish quickly. Maximum incentive to drag it out and make it expensive. Step 4. The revolving door. Pentagon and congressional officials who approve these contracts then get jobs at those same companies. Between 2001 and 2021, 380 high-level officials moved to defense companies. Average salary, $500,000 to $2 million per year. Step 5. Lobby for more. Companies spend hundreds of millions on lobbyists and campaign donations to both parties. Goal: extend conflicts, increase military budgets, start new wars. Let me show you exactly how this worked with one company. Lockheed Martin. September 11th, 2001. Terrorists attack America. Congress declares war. October 2001. Lockheed gets its first contract, $200 million for missiles and guidance systems. 2001 through 2021. Lockheed receives contracts totaling $680 billion from the Department of Defense. Not just Afghanistan, but the war drove military budgets through the roof. August 2021. US withdraws troops. Taliban wins. Result for Lockheed. Stock price in 2001, $32 per share. Stock price in 2021, $376 per share. That's an 1,175% increase. CEO Robert Stevens personally made $190 million between 2001 and 2012. Result for Americans: 2,456 soldiers killed, $2.3 trillion spent. War lost. Taliban in power. If you or I organized a scheme where we made $680 billion on a failed project that cost thousands of lives, we'd be in prison. But when Lockheed does it, their CEO gets congratulations from the president and a $20 million bonus. Now let me show you the receipts. This isn't theory, this is documented fact. According to the Federal Procurement Database, the public record of all government contracts, here's what really happened. Lockheed Martin, 2001 to 2021, $680.4 billion in contracts. Peak in 2019, $49.8 billion in a single year. Cost plus contracts, 62% of the total. Raytheon Technologies, 2001 to 2021, $425.6 billion in contracts. Afghanistan specifically, $82 billion. Pure profit, $67 billion. Boeing, 2001 to 2021, $392.1 billion in contracts, including $35 billion on transport planes that ended up in Taliban hands. General Dynamics, 2001 to 2021, $287.5 billion, including $8 billion on tanks and armored vehicles for the Afghan army, which surrendered in 11 days. Northrop Grumman, 2001 to 2021, $235.8 billion, drones and surveillance systems. Now look at how their stocks performed while Americans died. Stock growth 2001 to 2021. Lockheed Martin, up 1,175%. Raytheon, up 890%. Northrop Grumman, up 1,196%. General Dynamics, up 625%. Boeing, up 380%. For comparison, the S&P 500 over the same period grew 285%. Defense contractors beat the market by 3 to 4 times. While your son or daughter was getting shot at in Kandahar, Wall Street was getting rich. But wait, they admitted it themselves. The Afghanistan Papers, published by the Washington Post in December 2019, 2,000 pages of interviews with Pentagon and State Department officials. General Douglas Lute, advisor on Afghanistan under Bush and Obama, quote, "We didn't know what we were doing. We had no understanding of what was happening," end quote. The military budget increased every single year. In September 2021, during congressional hearings about the withdrawal, General Mark Milley admitted, quote, "Strategic defeat was unavoidable," end quote. But nobody mentioned the $2.3 trillion or the companies that profited. This wasn't a one-time thing. This is the system. Iraq War, 2003 to 2011. Same 5 companies, $138 billion in contracts. Halliburton, connected to Vice President Cheney, $39.5 billion. Result: Iraq destabilized, ISIS created. Syria, 2014 to 2019. Raytheon, $2.8 billion on Tomahawk missiles. Cost per missile, $1.87 million. Fired over 800 missiles. Result: Hassa stayed in power. Yemen, 2015 to present. Lockheed and Boeing, $90 billion in weapons to Saudi Arabia, used against Yemeni civilians. The UN calls it the world's largest humanitarian catastrophe. This isn't isolated incidents. This is 73 years. Korea, Vietnam, Panama, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen. Every war, same scheme. Now compare that to what happens to regular people. Edward Snowden exposed illegal NSA surveillance. He's in exile in Russia, facing 30 years in prison. Chelsea Manning leaked documents about war crimes in Iraq. She spent 7 years in prison, including solitary confinement. But defense contractors made over $2 trillion on a failed war that killed thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of civilians. The Pentagon knew it was failing since 2009, but contracts continued until 2021. Punishment? Zero. Fines? None. Investigations? None. CEO bonuses? 20 to 50 million per year. Different rules for them. Different rules for you. Let's understand the scale here. 2.313 trillion over 20 years. What is $2.3 trillion? It's bigger than Russia's entire GDP. It's bigger than Italy's GDP. It's almost equal to the United Kingdom's GDP. If it were a country, it would be the 9th largest economy on Earth. Compared to US budgets, the entire US education budget is $79 billion per year. 2.3 trillion equals 29 years of education funding. NASA's entire budget over 63 years of existence, $650 billion. 2.3 trillion equals 3.5 NASA programs. Per person, that's $7,000 from every American, $28,000 per family of 4. That money could have paid for 4 years of college for 11.5 million students, or built 23 million homes, or given every American free health care for 7 years. 143 million American taxpayers paid for this war. Every dollar of federal taxes you paid from 2001 to 2021 included about 8 cents for the Afghanistan war. You didn't even notice. It was deducted automatically. 2,456 American soldiers killed, 20,722 wounded, 30,177 veterans committed suicide after returning home. That's 12 times more than died in combat. Let that sink in. 12 times more killed themselves after coming home than died in the war. If you have a pension, 401k or investments, you probably own defense company stocks. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street are the largest shareholders of all 5 companies. Your retirement money is invested in war. So why don't most people know this? Because the media doesn't cover military contracts. It's boring, it's technically complex, and most importantly, ABC, NBC, CBS are owned by conglomerates that own defense contractors or have ties to them. Pentagon spending reports are over 1,200 pages of technical language, procurement, sustainment costs, operational expenditures, deliberately written so regular people can't understand. Insiders benefit from obscurity. The fewer people who understand where 2.3 trillion went, the fewer questions get asked. We've seen this before. Vietnam, 1965 to 1975. $1 trillion in 2021 dollars. Same companies, same cost plus contracts, same revolving door. Result, 58,220 Americans killed. War lost. North Vietnam won. Companies made hundreds of billions. They said it would never happen again. But 26 years later, Afghanistan. Same scheme, same result, and now they're setting up the next one. Why does this system continue despite obvious corruption? Because the people who should stop it are part of it. The Department of Defense is supposed to control spending and contractor efficiency. But here's the problem. Between 2001 and 2021, 380 high-level Pentagon officials moved to defense companies. 25 former generals sit on the boards of directors of these 5 companies. including generals who approved contracts to these same companies 2 to 3 years earlier. Examples: General James Mattis, Secretary of Defense 2017 to 2019, after resignation, joined the board of General Dynamics, $300,000 per year. William Lynn, Deputy Secretary of Defense 2009 to 2011, moved to Raytheon. Then Leonardo DRS, salary $1.2 million. Patrick Shanahan, Acting Secretary of Defense in 2019, was a Boeing top executive for 30 years before joining government. The fox is guarding the henhouse, and the fox knows that 2 to 3 years after government service, she'll get a job paying $500,000 to $2 million per year from the companies she's currently supposed to regulate. When contractors get caught committing fraud, here's what happens. Lockheed Martin, 2021. Accusation: overcharged $75 million on F-35 contracts. Fine, $10.8 million. Admitted no wrongdoing. Profit from F-35 that year, $6.2 billion. The fine equals 0.17% of profit. Boeing, 2020. Accusation: sold defective parts for transport planes. Fine, $12 million. Contracts for these planes, $35 billion. Fine equals 0.03%. Raytheon, 2019. Accusation: bribes to foreign officials to get contracts. Fine, $14.9 million. Profit from those contracts, over $2 billion. Fine equals 0.7%. The fines are just the cost of doing business. A $10 million fine for $6 billion in profit. That's not punishment. That's a rounding error. Now let's talk about lobbying. According to opensecrets.org, lobbying expenses from 2001 to 2021. Lockheed, $121 million. Boeing, $139 million. Raytheon, $98 million. Northrop Grumman, $72 million. General Dynamics, $63 million. Total, $493 million. Campaign donations 2001 to 2021. To Democrats, $185 million. To Republicans, $192 million. Both parties. This isn't a political problem. This is a bipartisan gravy train. Top recipients, both parties. Senator Mitch McConnell, $787,000. Senator John McCain, $3.2 million over his career. Senator Hillary Clinton, $1.1 million. Congressman Adam Smith, Chairman of the Armed Services Committee, $647,000. When it's time to vote on the military budget, guess how these senators vote? 100% yes, every single time. Try explaining to your grandmother what a cost-plus indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract with performance-based logistics and through life cycle sustainment clauses means. By the time you finish, she's exhausted. That's by design. The system is so complex, it's impossible to understand without legal and financial education. And why doesn't CNN, Fox, MSNBC dig into this story? Because defense companies are major advertisers on evening news. Lockheed spends over $20 million per year on advertising. TV commentators are former generals who sit on boards or consult for these companies. 90% of military experts on TV have financial ties to defense contractors. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. After every scandal, there's reform theatre. 2012 Defense Acquisition Reform after Afghanistan overspending. Result: contracts grew, didn't shrink. 2016 Whistleblower Protection Act for those who expose fraud. Result: whistleblowers still lose jobs and get persecuted. 2021 after withdrawal from Afghanistan, they promised an audit of spending. Result: no audit happened. Military budget for 2022 grew to $778 billion. Reforms are PR. The system doesn't change. So where are we now? Afghanistan ended in 2021. Does that mean the system changed? Current military budget, 2021, year of Afghanistan withdrawal, 753 billion. 2022, 778 billion. 2023, 816 billion. 2024, 842 billion. 2025 requested 895 billion. The war ended. The budget grew by $142 billion. Where's that money going? New conflicts mean new contracts. Ukraine, 2022 to 2025. The US allocated $113 billion in aid. $62 billion is military aid. Who supplies the weapons? Same 5 companies. Raytheon, Javelin and Stinger missiles, $5.2 billion contract. Lockheed, HIMARS systems, $3.9 billion. Pacific region, preparing for China. The Pentagon requested $15 billion for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative in 2024. Lockheed already got $8.2 billion for F-35s for Taiwan and Japan. Northrop got $11 billion for the new B-21 strategic bomber. Recent examples: October 2023, Israel-Palestine conflict escalates. Within 3 days, the US sends $14 billion in military aid to Israel. Boeing and Lockheed get emergency contracts for missiles and ammunition. Lockheed stock jumped 12% in 1 week. February 2024, Red Sea, Houthi attacks on ships. The US fires over 120 Tomahawk missiles made by Raytheon. Cost per missile, $2 million. Total fired, over $240 million in 3 weeks. Raytheon gets a $950 million contract to replenish stocks. Here's how you'll know the next big war is coming. Military budget increases without active conflict. Check. Already happening. Media starts demonizing the enemy. Check. China in the news every single day. Experts talk about conflict being inevitable. Check. Taiwan within 5 years, they say. Defense contractors get preparation contracts. Check. Over $50 billion already allocated. Lobbyists increase spending on Congress. Check. 2023 record, $150 million. All indicators point to the Pacific. China is the next big threat and the next big profit source. Meanwhile, members of Congress on armed services committees are buying defense stocks. 47 congressmen and senators hold positions in Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop. They vote for military budgets that increase the value of their stocks. November 2024, defense company CEOs sell stock at peak prices. Lockheed's CEO sold 14 million of his own shares. That's typical before a correction. They know when prices are inflated. They know something you don't. Experts are divided on timing. Optimists say we have 5 to 10 years before serious conflict with China. Pessimists say Taiwan could be invaded in the next 2 to 3 years. But everyone agrees the current trajectory isn't sustainable. $900 billion per year on military spending with $36 trillion in national debt means eventually something breaks. Either the economy collapses under military spending, or a big war starts which justifies even more spending. For the military-industrial complex, both scenarios are profitable. So that's how the system works. 5 defense contractors use war as a business model. They lobby for conflicts, get no-bid contracts, drag out projects for maximum profit, and hire the officials who approve those contracts. Americans pay trillions. Soldiers die. Wars are lost, and companies make record profits. This isn't about Afghanistan. This is about a system where conflict is more profitable than peace, where losing is more profitable than winning, where war isn't a bug, it's a feature. The rules for them and for you are different. You pay taxes. Your kids go fight. They get trillions and zero accountability. This affects your retirement, your taxes, maybe your children's lives. 143 million Americans don't know they're being robbed through the military budget. Now you know. You've seen it. You can't unsee it. Next time you hear about a national security threat or the need for intervention, you'll know what's really happening. They're already preparing the next one, and they're using your money to do it. Retry